How do you circumvent the outrageous transaction fees for Bitcoin right now?
A very good question. We can't completely avoid it, but we make it bearable for all these nano transactions. So what we use is something called the Bitcoin payment channel, which is opening sort of a payment session by committing some funds to the channel first. Then you have an unlimited amount of micro or nano transactions in between, down to 1 Satoshi, and then you close it again. So you have fees 2 times over a certain time frame. If this time frame is 1 month, we basically pay 2 Bitcoin fees in this 1 month for one user with many publishers.
So this would be similar to one-hop Lightning.
Yeah, exactly. So this was we built this before the Lightning was even conceived. So the payment channel was even Satoshi mentioned in some email discussions that there should be something like like a payment channel, like where there's an escrow account and then just modify transactions, maybe with a time lock. And it was implemented in Bitcoin J, I think about 3-4 years ago almost. And we implemented it in JavaScript using the Bitcore library done by BitPay, which was great.
That is really cool.
So we modified it.
So you actually found a solution to circumventing the transaction fees that are at about $2 and rising.
So
yeah, to some extent.
we're mitigating the impact. But if they rise further in the Bitcoin network, we have to take more measures, right? Because even if you transfer a cent and you have a month worth of value in this thing, if you pay 10 euros to get your funds in and out and you want to transfer in total maybe 5 euros, still doesn't make sense. So we're working on this, we're observing this, we are hoping that there needs to be a solution for this fee issue with Bitcoin, or we have to change the blockchain. And we're like long-term Bitcoiners. We really like the Bitcoin blockchain. We like it to scale. We want it to scale. We hope that it will. And we also hope that the fees will go down again. But if it doesn't, then there needs to be a solution. So our solution short-term would then be that we change the technology to a certain degree, staying on blockchain, but not using Bitcoin.
That's interesting. I mean, it seems with the rising exchange rates, not just for Bitcoin, but also for Ether, for Monero, for Dash, for all the interesting cryptocurrencies and the contenders, you can see that this is not really something that has been in focus at the design level. Like Bitcoin transaction fees are currently at about $1.5, $2 on average and rising. Ethereum's transactions are at 50 cents. And even Monero and Dash are at 7 cents. So when you're talking about going to another blockchain, isn't that just kicking the can down the road a little bit? As in, aren't all blockchains grappling with this exact same problem?
Litecoin is a bit better. I think it's one of the cheapest now. There might be Doge as well. But it is an issue which we are partly solving by, like spreading it out through like an arbitrary amount of microtransactions in between. But it's becoming an issue, of course, and it will always be an issue.
So yes, they're rising, but so there's also a separation to be made. So you're talking about rising exchange rates and so on, right? And then one might be thinking that, okay, the fee is actually some fixed number in Bitcoin, and as the exchange rate is going up, then this becomes more expensive. But the problem is that it's not going up in US dollar value, but also the fee that you have to pay in Bitcoin is going up.
As well,
like this is like multiplying the whole problem. And in other cryptocurrencies or other blockchains, the fees are not rising so fast as they are in Bitcoin, right? And it might also be the case that we, at the end, have to find deploy our own blockchain that has like less traffic already or so, or we use something that is not a proof of work blockchain, or what I personally would expect is that we find a solution to the problem of scaling this whole thing. And I think that we're maybe we also talk in more detail later about it, but this current situation that we have with Bitcoin, where we have this kind of squeeze now on the throughput in the blockchain, there will be a technical solution to that. I'm very, very optimistic about that. And this can then be applied also to other blockchains. But for the time being, we can solve the problem for a certain period of time if we move to a blockchain that is not as heavily used as Bitcoin, because the fees will be lower in there for some time at least. It's not maybe, it's kicking down the can a little bit the road, while people are working tirelessly on Bitcoin and Ethereum to make the scaling happen. And they will break through with this. And it's just a process that takes a lot of thinking and has no easy solutions. And maybe we'll talk about it later, but I'm very, very optimistic that this will work.
But let's not forget, about 4 years ago, the Bitcoin fees were slashed to a tenth of what they were because the Bitcoin exchange rate was rising rapidly,
Yep.
and there was still the original fee, sort of hard-coded, and then it was the minimum fee was lowered by to a tenth. So they went down. The fees went down.
Yep.
This is actually when we started out with SatoshiPay. So fees were around half a cent. So we could neglect it, and still the network was running. I mean, the block reward was higher, but there was not so much focus on making income from the fees of the miners. That's sort of a recent thing, and hopefully that will also be solved in other ways.